The morning air was heavy in East Side Detroit, thick with humidity and the smell of cracked asphalt that had soaked up years of heat and hardship. The sun had barely begun its climb, but the city already shimmered under a haze that made every breath feel like a weight. On the edge of MacArthur Street, where broken fences leaned like tired men and old porch swings creaked under the windless heat, 16-year-old Jalen Rhodes pedaled his old red bike with quiet determination. Strapped to the back was a milk crate lined with brown paper bags, groceries he'd picked up for neighbors through a small delivery app. It didn't pay much, but it was honest work and it helped stretch meals for his mother and little sister. Jalen knew what every dollar meant. He also knew his time window was closing. If he didn't deliver the order in 10 minutes, his app rating would drop. If it dropped again, he might get suspended. That meant no tips, no earnings. And that meant Mama would probably skip dinner. Again. His muscles burned as he pushed through the last intersection. A short detour through Alberta Avenue might shave off a block or two, just enough to slide in under the wire. That's when he saw it. An old man, maybe in his 70s, stood on a slanted front porch of a gray house swallowed by overgrown bushes and sun-bleached siding. A stack of thick lumber was propped against the railing, and the man struggled to lower one long plank off a rusted sawhorse. His grip faltered. The wood began to shift. Jalen's stomach dropped. "Hey!" he shouted, ditching his bike in the gutter. The groceries tumbled to the pavement, apples bouncing into the street, but he didn't stop to look. In seconds he was across the lawn just as the board slid loose. Jalen threw his shoulder under it. The weight slammed into him, driving him to one knee, but he kept it from crashing onto the man's legs. He grunted, guiding it to the grass with a thud. His chest heaved, lungs burning. The man staggered back, catching himself on the porch rail, a hand on his heart. "Jesus," he wheezed. "Could have taken me out for good." Jalen winced, rolling his shoulder. "You okay, sir?" The man nodded slowly. "Thanks to you." Jalen stood and glanced around. The yard was full of tools and wood scraps. A crooked ladder leaning against a gutter that had come half loose from the roof. A half-assembled workbench sat lopsided beneath the porch eave. "You building something?" Jalen asked. The old man chuckled. "Trying to. Not very well, clearly. Name's Harold Bennett. I used to live here as a boy. Moved back after my wife passed. My son begged me to sell, get a condo out in West Bloomfield with all the fancy bells and whistles. But this place has history. My father built this porch himself." Jalen looked at the peeling paint, the dry rot in the steps, the way the roof sagged slightly over the railing. "I can see that," he said. "But man, this is a lot of work." Harold nodded. "Ain't cheap hiring folks these days. But I figured if my old man could do it with his bare hands, I can too. Guess I bit off more than I can chew." Jalen hesitated. His eyes flicked back to his bike. The groceries were probably ruined by now, the delivery window long gone. His phone buzzed another warning. His account would get flagged. Suspension was coming. Maybe even permanent deactivation. "Still," he said, "you need help moving the rest of those boards?" Harold's eyes narrowed, suspicious at first. "You asking for money?" Jalen cracked a grin. "No, sir. Just thinking you might kill yourself out here without a spotter." The old man's laugh was scratchy but real. "Well, if you're offering." For the next hour, Jalen worked under the punishing sun, his shirt clinging to him, his hands blistered by the rough wood. They moved planks, resecured railings, swept debris off the porch. Harold gave instructions with a slow, deliberate cadence, pausing often to catch his breath. When they finished, the boards were stacked neatly, and the porch, while still aged, no longer looked like it might collapse under a stiff breeze. "You saved my hide," Harold said, extending a calloused hand. "What's your name, son?" "Jalen Rhodes." "If you ever need something," Harold said, clasping his shoulder, "this porch owes you." Jalen smiled, tired but proud. He got back on his bike and rode home, groceries bruised, money lost, but something about the day felt more valuable than the bills he didn't earn. That evening, Jalen returned to his family's small two-bedroom rental on Evergreen Street. The walls were thin, the carpet old, but it was home. His mom, Dana Rhodes, looked up from the stove as he walked in. "You're late." "Sorry," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Something came up." She narrowed her eyes. "What kind of something?" Jalen glanced at the stack of bills on the kitchen table, at his 7-year-old sister, Mia, curled up on the floor with a worn-out picture book. There was this old man trying to fix his porch. It looked bad. Real bad. He almost got crushed. I helped him. Dana's eyes softened, but her mouth stayed firm. And your shift? Suspended. Maybe for the week. Dana didn't yell. She just let out a long breath and walked to him, placing her hand gently on his cheek. You did right, Jay. He blinked, surprised. This world doesn't always reward kindness, she added. But don't you let that stop you. They sat down to dinner: rice, beans, and the last of the canned corn. It wasn't much, but it was warm. Jalen barely tasted it. His thoughts were still with the porch, the old man's smile, and the weight that didn't feel like loss. What Jalen didn't know was that while he lay on the couch that night staring at the cracked ceiling, Harold Bennett was dialing a number he hadn't called in years. Marcus, he rasped. I need you to meet someone. The next morning, a black SUV pulled up outside Jalen's house. A man in a tailored charcoal suit stepped out, holding a briefcase and a business card. I'm looking for Jalen Rhodes, he said. Dana stood in the doorway, suspicious. Who's asking? Marcus Bennett. My father Harold told me about your son. Jalen appeared behind her, wary but curious. Marcus extended a hand. He said your boy saved his life. Stayed to help, even knowing it might cost him. That kind of character, it's rare. Jalen stepped forward. I didn't do it for money. I know, Marcus said. That's why I want to offer you something. He gestured toward the SUV. Ride with me. Both of you. I'll explain. Dana looked at her son, then back at the man. After a long pause, she nodded. The ride to downtown was quiet. The interior smelled like leather and cologne, the hum of the engine soothing. They arrived at a glass-paneled office building, a logistics firm with Marcus Bennett's name on the plaque. Inside a small conference room, Marcus laid out 2 files. One was a job offer for Dana, administrative support with benefits and flexibility. The second was for Jalen, a part-time youth apprenticeship in supply chain logistics. I run a program, Marcus said. 4 teens with potential. We teach, we mentor, we invest. Jalen stared at the papers. There's more, Marcus added. If you're interested, there's a scholarship. Full tuition at a private high school. Transportation, supplies, the works. Jalen swallowed hard. Why me? Marcus leaned forward. Because you helped when no one was looking. You gave something without expecting anything back. That's who my father raised me to be. That's who I see in you. Dana's hand reached out beneath the table, steadying her son's. Jalen looked at the folder again. I'm in, he said quietly. The weeks that followed changed everything. Jalen rode to work in pressed clothes, shadowed professionals, learned shipping routes, inventory systems. He made mistakes. He asked questions. He improved. Marcus checked in often, offering encouragement but never coddling. Meanwhile, Dana flourished at her new job. For the first time in years, the lights stayed on, the fridge stayed full, and her laughter echoed through the kitchen in the evenings. Then came the letter. Jalen's scholarship had been accepted. So had Mia's. The Bennett Foundation would cover both siblings through high school. The day Jalen told his sister, she cried happy tears, hugging him with arms that barely wrapped around his chest. You did it, she whispered. He shook his head. We did. And one morning before the school year began, Jalen stood in front of a mirror, tying a new blue uniform tie, his shoes polished, his bag packed with fresh notebooks. Outside, Harold stood waiting by the curb, a cane in one hand, a smile on his face. You ready? He asked. Jalen nodded. Yeah, I think I am. As they walked toward the school, sunlight spilling across the cracked sidewalk, Jalen felt something shift inside him, not just hope, but ownership. The belief that maybe the future wasn't just something you waited for. Maybe it was something you earned, one good deed at a time. And just like that, everything changed, not through luck, but through love, labor, and the unexpected power of showing up when it counted most. For